The rain had come back to the city after what felt like a season of endless dryness. It was as if the sky itself had been holding its breath for weeks and finally decided to exhale. It began with a shy drizzle, so soft that pedestrians paused, tilting their heads upward in surprise. The first drops were tentative, almost asking for permission to fall. 10 came more, a bit heavier, a bit steadier, until, finally, the city surrendered to the rain, letting it wash the dust from rooftops and the weight from shoulders. Umbrellas bloomed instantly. Bright yellow ones popped open like cheerful sunflowers. Navy blue ones unfurled with a quiet sigh. Transparent umbrellas caught the city's glow like floating bubbles drifting down the street. People rousseau walked, strolled, dodged puddles, and accepted them. Rain always had a way of slowing the city down, even if just for a moment. And it was in this slow, softened moment that Alara first saw the café. She had passed this street thousands of times. She knew every storefront, every alleyway, every rusted drainpipe. Yet that evening, between a second-hand bookstore and an antique shop that usually kept its shutters down, stood a wooden door she had never seen before. It wasn't new, no. It looked worn, weathered, and full of stories. Above the door hung a swinging wooden sign carved with elegant, rain-washed letters. The café that opens when umbrellas bloom. Alara blinked. She removed her glasses and wiped the mist from them, expecting the door to vanish, the sign to unwrite itself, the entire scene to dissolve like a daydream. But it remained. Warm light dripped from the windows in soft golden strokes. Steam curled lazily inside, beckoning to her. And beneath the door, a gentle, amber glow spilled onto the wet street like a secret leaking out. Maybe I'm just tired, she whispered to herself, though a part of her already knew she would step forward. Curiosity tugged at her sleeves. Loneliness tugged at something deeper, and the rain tapped her shoulders as if encouraging her to go on. She grabbed her umbrella, shook the droplets from its edges, and approached the door. The moment her hand touched the brass handle, she felt warmth bloom under her palm. It pulsed one soft, inviting. Before she even turned it, the door opened with a quiet sigh that reminded her of blankets being pulled up on cold nights. Inside was a world she did not expect. The air was warm, but not stifling cozy, like it held the memory of every gentle evening ever lived. The scent was familiar, yet impossible to name. Cinnamon, old pages, orange peel, a faint touch of lavender, and something like possibility. Lanterns floated above in slow spirals, their light flickering in soft rhythms that felt alive. Tables hugged the walls, each one lit by a tiny flame that danced as people breathed. Alara stepped in, dripping slightly from the rain, and the door closed behind her without a sound. At the counter stood a barista, an older woman with silver-streaked hair braided loosely and tucked over her shoulder. Her eyes, soft and perceptive, sparkled with the kind of understanding one usually only finds in artists and very old friends. She gave Alara a small, warm smile. "Welcome," she said gently, as if she had been waiting for her. "You made it just in time." Alara removed her damp coat slowly. "Just in time. For what?" The barista nodded toward the windows. "For the umbrellas to bloom." Alara opened her mouth to ask more questions, but the woman was already placing something on the counter. A menu. Except, it wasn't printed. It wasn't handwritten, either. The words moved softly, like mist on a window pane, rearranging itself into new shapes. "Drinks we think you need. A cup of slow breathing. Warmth you forgot you deserved. The rain's kindness. A moment that doesn't rush you. Clarity steeped in bergamot. The courage you misplaced." Alara stared at it, feeling her chest tightened in a way that wasn't painful, just unexpected. "I don't understand," she murmured. "You don't have to," the barista replied kindly. "Just choose what calls to you." The words "warmth you forgot you deserved" shimmered a little brighter. Alara felt something inside her soften. "That one," she thought. "That's the one." She pointed. The barista nodded knowingly. "Ase wated." Alara glanced around the café. Despite its magical nature, it wasn't full just. A few people sat within it. There was a man with a vivid red umbrella, propped beside him, tapping a nervous rhythm on his cup, his gaze downward as if apologizing to the world. There was an elderly woman wrapped in a shawl, patterned like storm clouds, humming quietly while cradling her glowing mug between weathered hands. And there was a young girl, no older than 9, sitting near the window, drawing little stars on the fogged glass with her fingertip. All of them seemed lost, somehow, and yet they weren't alone here. A steaming cup appeared before Laura. It was simple white porcelain, a delicate crack near the rim, as though the cup had lived its own life and held its own stories. She lifted it to her lips. Warmth flooded her instantly, blooming from the center of her chest and flowing outward. It wasn't just heat, it was memory. Safety. Late autumn mornings, when the world still felt possible. Quiet afternoons, spent with books she meant to return to someday. The warmth of someone holding her hand, the calm she hadn't realized she'd been craving. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes before she could stop them. Easy, the barista said softly, her voice like steam rising. You've gone a long time without real warmth. Elara looked down. I didn't realize how cold I'd felt. The rain outside grew steadier, tapping comforting rhythms against the windows, as if in agreement. The man with the red umbrella spoke suddenly, his voice low and shaky. I've wasted so much time, he said to the room. Tug a wasan tea. Looking at anyone in particular, kept waiting for the perfect moment, kept saying, later, and now I don't know what I am supposed to do. The barista glanced at him with gentle pity. You take a sip, she said. That's how you start. He lifted the cup with trembling hands and inhaled. His shoulders lowered, the tension in his jaw soft. A single tear dropped onto the wood of the table. The elderly woman spoke next, her voice a delicate flutter. I forgot myself, she whispered. Gave everything I had to others. And when I finally looked for who I used to be, I couldn't find her. You didn't lose her, the barista replied. She just got tired. Let her rest. The young girl traced another star on the window. I miss someone, she said simply. I don't want to forget them. Elara felt a twist inside her chest. Everyone here carried something heavy, something invisible, something the rain had uncovered. And then, quietly, the girl added, but it hurts to remember. Then we will hold that hurt with you, the barista said softly. You are not alone in this room. The rain outside softened, then grew louder again. The cafe lights dimmed slightly, then warmed once more. Everything felt alive, as though the building breathed with them. Elara took another sip. Her heart settled, her shoulders loosened. She looked at the barista with growing curiosity. Why does this place appear? She asked. The woman leaned forward, resting her arms on the counter. Because storms open people. They slow down the world. Wash it clean. Make it honest. When umbrellas bloom, people notice the sky again. And when they do, her smile deepened. They finally see us. Elusively poetic, Elara said, half to herself. The barista chuckled. The truth often is. Elara held her cup with both hands, letting the warmth seep into her palms. What happens when the rain stops? The cafe closes. The woman's eyes softened, and people return to their lives. But something changes. Something small. Something important. Elara looked into her cup. And what is that? They remember themselves. Silence settled over the cafe. A gentle, comforting silence. The kind that felt like a blanket being placed over weary shoulders. Elara suddenly felt the weight of her own exhaustion. Not physical, something quieter, deeper. She had been moving through life half asleep, repeating days that felt like photocopies of one another. Routine had become a cocoon she never noticed closing around her. I stopped living, she whispered unexpectedly. I think I've been on autopilot for months, maybe years. The barista did not look surprised. Most people don't notice the drift until a storm brings them back. What do I do now? Elara asked, her voice small. You choose one gentle thing, the barista said. Just one, and you do it before the rain ends. Alara was quiet for a long moment. The man with the red umbrella finally took a full sip. The elderly woman stood and placed a coin on the counter, a gesture of reclaiming herself. The young girl pressed her forehead to the glass and watched her star fade slowly, peacefully. Alara finally exhaled a long, trembling breath. "I want to feel alive again," she said. "Quiet, but certain." "That is enough," the barista replied. "For now." The rain began to ease. The umbrellas outside dipped, folded, disappeared under arms and into bags. The sky lightened to a soft, misty gray. It was time. The barista reached under the counter and placed something small into Alara's hands. An umbrella-shaped charm, tiny, delicate, shimmering faintly like a raindrop caught in light. "A reminder," she said. "You deserve warmth even when the sky is dry." Alara closed her fingers around it. It felt like holding the beginning of something. When she stepped outside, the door closed behind her with a soft click. She turned to look at the cafe, its glowing windows, its wooden frame, its gentle warmth. But in the blink of an eye, it flickered, wavered, and dissolved into the thinning rain. The street looked ordinary again. But Alara felt anything but. She walked slowly, noticing every small beauty she had forgotten. The scent rising from wet pavement, the ripple of puddles under passing steps, the gentle hush of a city cooling down after a storm. She breathed in, deeply, fully. The charm warmed in her hand. She didn't know if she would ever find the cafe again. The barista had said it appeared only when umbrellas bloom, but she knew something had shifted, something subtle, yet unmistakable. For the first time in a very long time, Alara felt awake. And as she walked home through the soft silver haze of the last remaining drizzle, she realized something beautiful. Sometimes the world doesn't need to change. Sometimes you only need to remember how to feel it. If you've ever felt like Alara, lost in the routine and disconnected from yourself, know that you're not alone. Sometimes all it takes is a moment of stillness, like a rainy day, to see what's been hidden in plain sight. Take care of yourselves, and remember to look for the warmth. Thanks for listening.